I'd have to get you the exact numbers of what that is left to be allocated.
Does it have to do with the war in Iran?
No, this is rebuilding our military from what was not funded in the past under the Biden administration. So this is from 2026, one big beautiful bill, which helped move the president's priorities like Golden Dome for America, move away from all the woke priorities of what the Biden administration was pursuing.
We're putting more money into this exchange with Iran, a war of choice, which we never should have entered.
Hegseth can't even say where the $75 billion went. So he starts preaching about the one big beautiful bill. And right after him, Durbin drops the only honest line in the entire hearing. This is a war of choice we never should have entered. That is the whole story in 20 seconds. Everything that follows is just the receipts.
Mr. Secretary, I'd like to ask you to help me reconcile some numbers. It's my understanding that this whole supplemental funding request is $87.6 billion, and most of the funding, $67 billion, is for the Department of Defense. Yet we are told the Department of Defense still has $75 billion in unobligated funding from last year's reconciliation package. Is that true?
Roughly correct numbers, yes.
So you've left some change on the dresser before you prepared to come for this hearing. What's going to happen to that $75 billion?
Well, that 75 there's plans and designs on that, part of the rebuild of our military, which had to be undertaken. And so the one big beautiful bill gave us specific avenues. I'd have to get you the exact numbers of what that is left to be allocated.
Does it have to do with the war in Iran?
No, this is rebuilding our military from what was not funded in the past under the Biden administration. So this is from 2026, one big beautiful bill, which helped move the president's priorities like Golden Dome for America, move away from all the woke priorities of what the Biden administration was pursuing, give us a chance to start cutting these deals on munitions, all the things that the president wanted us to focus on: shipbuilding, hypersonics. I mean, the Biden administration ignored hypersonics. They just decided to pretend like that technology didn't exist and we shouldn't invest in it. There are things. I don't know what Lloyd Austin did for 4 years. I really don't.
Well, I'm sure
the amount of neglect, the amount of stale thinking and bureaucracy was staggering when we took over. So one big beautiful bill gave us a chance to get caught back up.
Let me interrupt your speech for a minute, Mr. Secretary. It's my turn to ask questions. I've been listening patiently while you made your presentation. You estimated at one point that the cost of the war in Iran was $29 billion, but then added a caveat that there was a replacement of munitions, for example. Do you have a new estimate about what the war has cost us so far in the 5th month of the first year of this war in Iran?
What you just witnessed is classic Pete Hegseth. Questioned clearly regarding $75 billion remaining entirely untouched, he instantly pivots into a complete political monologue, criticizing the president, faulting Lloyd Austin, and praising that single massive legislative package like absolute sacred text. Senator Durbin eventually interrupts the monologue to reclaim his questioning time. You can sense the immediate chill. Hegseth was abruptly notified that this was not a campaign event. This specific exchange revealed the defense secretary arrived before lawmakers equipped with rehearsed rhetoric rather than actual solutions. If this confrontation resonated with you, just as it did with me, leave a like and share your thoughts on his completely evasive response down below.
Senator, the estimate we have as of today is $37.5 billion.
And is the current activity, which we've been told about, the exchange of fire back and forth in Iran, an indication that that number is going to go up in the months ahead?
Some of that number captures additional O&M, mill pay, and other that would be anticipated through the fiscal year. So some of that anticipates what costs would be going out in the future as well.
So the new number you've given me is what?
$37.5 billion. Senator.
And that represents the cost of the war through what period of time?
Through now for certain aspects of it, but also mill pay, O&M, other anticipated costs through September 30th, Senator.
General Kane, let me ask you a question. I joined a group of senators, some are here, Senator Rounds, Senator Coons, Senator Shaheen, and met with President Zelensky in Turkey during the NATO summit. He was very explicit in terms of what he needed to win. He feels the momentum in Ukraine is moving to his side, and that he is putting a foot forward instead of back. Is that your feeling?
Sir, I think the pressure that Ukraine is putting on Russia is substantive at this point.
Do you acknowledge his request that we help them with air defenses as a high priority?
So I know he's made the request. Whether or not that moves forward is always a debate at our civilian leadership, but I'm aware of that request.
Are you aware of the fact that we appropriated and the president signed into law $400 billion of supplemental funding for Ukraine, including money for air defenses?
I am, sir.
Are you also aware the administration has informed us that that money will not be available in many aspects until the next president is in office?
Sir, I'm not aware of that. My
that's a
understanding was that capital had been allocated, but I'll have to defer to my civilian leadership.
No,
on
I'm
that
sorry
matter.
to tell you the pay plan tells us to be prepared to spend that money in fiscal year 29. The new president, whoever it may be, will make that decision. If you're talking about air defenses and the momentum on the side of Zelensky, what impact will it have if we cannot fund this for 3 years?
Sir, I want to highlight that the incredible work that the Ukraine industrial base is doing as they scale their own capabilities. It ranges from their surface-to-air capabilities to their air-to-air capabilities. I'll note that recently we had the first air-to-air kill where a Ukrainian F-16 shot down a Russian fighter. So I think their ability to scale their layered defense has come along a long way over the past couple years with the help and assistance of many.
General, thank you for your service to the country, and I'm sorry for our losses. I believe 17 servicemen have given their lives in Iran so far, and hundreds have been injured. We should acknowledge that fact. And let me also say, we're at a moment in history where we can win the war in Ukraine. That victory would be critically important for those people who have fought for more than 4 years against the odds and proven they can put Putin back on his heels.
Senator Durbin requested a current total for the Iran conflict, and Secretary Hegseth provided a figure of $37.5 billion. He subsequently confessed that a portion of this amount accounts for expenses that have not yet occurred, such as upcoming operations and future payroll still pending on the schedule. Therefore, the formal price tag, up to this point, already incorporates expenditures that have not materialized. That revelation by itself ought to have concluded the proceedings, but it did not. Durbin shifted immediately to the topic of Ukraine, focusing on the $400 million Congress had previously authorized and the president had already signed specifically for aerial defense systems. Hegseth remarked that he believed these funds had already been distributed. Durbin was forced to correct the Secretary of Defense, noting that the cash is slated for fiscal year 2029, which is 3 years away, and will be the responsibility of the next commander-in-chief. An active defense secretary was unaware of his own agency's schedule for providing assistance to a nation actively battling for its very existence. 17 American citizens have lost their lives in Iran, with hundreds more sustaining injuries. Simultaneously, the funding for aerial protection for a strategic partner retaining momentum remains completely stalled. This situation is not a simple accounting mistake, but rather a deliberate decision. Observe how Hegseth grabs for the exact same defensive tactic on every single occasion. Because the instant Durbin presents the $75 billion issue, the secretary entirely dodges the inquiry. He immediately begins sermonizing about one massive and wonderful piece of legislation, mentioning the Golden Dome, naval construction, and hypersonic technology. He claims the Biden administration neglected various issues and ultimately abandoned the armed forces in a condition of outdated ideology and bureaucratic inefficiency. He goes so far as to publicly state that he has absolutely no idea what Lloyd Austin accomplished during his 4 years in office. That response does not serve as a valid clarification, but rather acts as a theatrical display. He essentially handles the congressional inquiry exactly like a political rally appearance. Whenever he faces pressure regarding unused capital, he immediately shifts the conversation toward ideological talking points. Whenever someone requests concrete statistics from him, he simply provides catchy political catchphrases. This legislation acts as a mystical incantation intended to magically erase any underlying logistical discrepancies. We currently possess $75 billion resting unused, and yet we supposedly require an additional $67 billion for this exact same agency. If these reserves truly possess established blueprints and purposes as he asserts, then one must ask why the administration is returning to Congress to request another huge supplemental package. Either these detailed agendas are completely fabricated, or the fresh financial demand is merely extra expenditure disguised as an emergency requirement. The aspect that truly stands out to me is the highly selective nature of his administrative comprehension. Hegseth is perfectly capable of repeating the established arguments regarding hypersonic weapons and progressive cultural priorities without a single moment of hesitation. However, he is completely unable to explain when the $400 million already designated for Ukrainian aerial defenses will actually be deployed. One specific collection of details is readily available for him to speak aloud, while the alternative set of facts seemingly never even made it to his workspace. This dynamic perfectly illustrates his standard operating procedure. Whenever the financial figures become inconvenient, the grandstanding commences, and as the monologue stretches on, it becomes increasingly obvious that his actual objective is not balancing the ledger, but rather shielding the political storyline.
But instead of finding the money that they need now for air defenses, we're putting more money into this exchange with Iran, a war of choice which we never should have entered. Thank you, General.
Senator Markley.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Secretary Rollins. I appreciate your partnership on addressing several issues in Oregon, and I sent you information about a couple others, and you responded. Appreciate it. We'll follow up on the research service. We'll follow up on the concern about in-kind contributions serving as a match. But I particularly need your help on the fire funding. And I know you've indicated how important that is. Where we stand now is that the Senate seems hamstrung, that they're seeking to have OMB give them a number on that. Various sources say the number is probably about $5 billion. I don't really care if it's 4.5 or 5 or 5.5. The point is that folks here, senators, are asking for a number from OMB in order to go forward. And when we're looking at the fires right now in my home state's the epicenter of the highest risk in the country. So can we get your help to get that number and move this process?
Yes, absolutely. It is of paramount importance, especially in the middle of fire season right now.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Chairman Kane, I think there was a sense that the President expressed at the start of the war that the U.S. military power was overwhelming and would likely produce unconditional surrender quickly by Iran. And that obviously hasn't happened. Was it your opinion as well? Did you feel like our military force could produce an unconditional surrender in quick order?
Sir, I won't, with due respect, I won't share my private advice to the President. What I will assure you and the American people is I always speak truth to power and offer an accurate assessment of what my assessment is of both our readiness, the plans and activities that might be undertaken, the associated risks, and the secondary and tertiary considerations that go with those opinions or options.
Thank you. So you feel like the various risks that the Iran could possibly close the strait, despite the destruction of their navy, that the possibility of assassinating their political leaders and their military leaders could produce a strengthened hardline and weaken the reformers, that Iran would have the ability to sustain its ability to attack sites throughout the Middle East, that the initial requirements of the war could surely deplete our basically high-end standoff munitions, that this could affect our relations with our allies. All those were factors well considered in this decision to go to war.
Sir, as I said, I won't opine on or share my private advice to the President.
I'm not asking about your Vice President. I'm asking you, did you understand these issues, or have these become revelations as the wars unfolded?
Sir, my job is to understand all of the considerations that go into the carefully considered use of military power.
Let me ask you this then.
Yes, sir.
I understand why you don't want to respond, but these are all massive risks that seem to be poorly weighed in the beginning of this misadventure. Currently, there are reports that we have hit the Bonji desalination plant that provides water to about 20 villages or about 10,000 people, and we also damaged the desalination plant at Ketchum Island. Were these deliberate targets by the United States?
So I'm not aware of those as being particular targets, nor am I aware of those reports, and I'll have to go back and get back to you on that.
If you could, I'd appreciate that. You are aware that infrastructure that civilians rely on to survive is not generally considered legitimate military targets?
Sir, as you know, we have a robust process which considers a target that goes through a system that looks at a variety of considerations to include what you're alluding to around both purely civilian or dual-use targets. I have trust and confidence in CENTCOM that they're looking at the range of those things on a daily basis.
It sounds like you are assuring us that we will, the United States, not target, even in retaliatory sense, infrastructure that is generally considered to be primarily for civilian survival.
Sir, as I mentioned, we have a robust process, and we have the most professional military force
It'd just
in the
be
world
nice
that
to have
follows
you
the
say
law.
yes, because this is
That follows the
international law.
Yes,
if
sir,
you
it follows
understand
the
the
law.
international law.
I do, sir. I've got a lot of lawyers that help me understand it.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And will you get back to us on that
Yes, sir,
question of
of
whether we
course.
targeted the
Yes, sir.
desalination plants, and
Of
if so, why? My time's up, but I do want to express encouragement to look at what the negotiators have put forward, or advisors, as to whether a 10-day break could facilitate returning to dialogue that might find a path forward.
Senator Durbin described the situation as an elective conflict, and that specific phrasing represents the fundamental issue rather than mere political rhetoric. Ukraine remains actively engaged in combat, while its commanders believe the tactical advantage has turned, meaning the current appeal is for tangible anti-aircraft systems that preserve urban centers and make Russian progression significantly more costly. Lawmakers previously approved the funding, and the commander-in-chief formally authorized it. But the delivery of these resources is inexplicably delayed until 2029, as though the battlefield will simply pause for a future presidency. Simultaneously, America is funneling massive assets into the Iranian theater, representing an engagement the current executive branch deliberately initiated, but now completely fails to establish a clear exit strategy for. Financial burdens continuously rise, while United States military personnel suffer fatal and non-fatal casualties. Yet any inquiry regarding strategic focus merely prompts another grand monologue about institutional reconstruction, historical oversights, and the majesty of proposed legislation. Any federal apparatus capable of rapidly deploying capital for a self-initiated combat zone ought to possess the competence to transfer previously authorized funds to a partner nation actively holding its ground. The reality that this administration fails to do so reveals absolutely everything regarding how they internally prioritize critical geopolitical emergencies. This situation transcends any argument about national financial capacity, instead exposing exactly which battle the executive branch truly desires to bankroll immediately, versus which struggle they gladly delay until different leadership takes over. Zoom out from the isolated conversational back and forth and examine the comprehensive reality that Senator Durbin successfully exposed to the public. The Defense Secretary approached the Financial Oversight Committee demanding tens of billions in additional capital, even though his agency maintained an enormous untouched budget surplus from the prior fiscal calendar. When lawmakers applied pressure regarding these accounting discrepancies, he completely failed to balance the ledger and opted to deliver a theatrical address instead. Upon facing demands for current expenditure totals regarding his chosen overseas conflict, the quoted price increased and was subsequently shown to incorporate finances that have not actually been utilized. After being challenged about previously authorized assistance for a strategic partner enduring ongoing warfare, he remained ignorant of the delivery schedule until a legislator educated him on the matter. Absolutely none of this revelation necessitated classified intelligence or political bias, because every single inconsistency originated directly from the executive branch's provided statistics and the cabinet members' direct testimony. This specific dynamic renders the congressional session incredibly devastating, as Durbin avoided making direct allegations and simply juxtaposed the fresh financial demands against the idle reserves, the escalating combat expenses against the stalled anti-aircraft funding, and the political rhetoric against the glaring absence of fundamental comprehension. The resulting narrative has nothing to do with strict financial limitations, but rather serves as a stark illustration of administrative favoritism. A specific military engagement commands instantaneous funding and diplomatic focus, while a separate crisis previously greenlit by legislators is forced to stall for multiple years. One particular batch of political arguments remains perfectly rehearsed for deployment, whereas a different collection of essential realities apparently never crosses the defense secretary's radar. I have observed numerous congressional inquiries of this nature where the majority simply degrade into chaotic bickering. Yet this specific encounter avoided that fate entirely. The objective statistics simply will not align with the established political storyline, and whenever that structural failure occurs, the rehearsed monologues instantly lose their persuasive power. This dynamic represents the actual legacy of the confrontation, serving not as an ideological dispute, but as an undeniable showcase of what the current leadership considers critical versus what they are entirely willing to sideline. Should you find this analytical summary valuable, please press the like button and share your perspectives in the comment section. And remember to subscribe to Political Frontline to ensure you catch the next instance where undeniable proof is presented with such absolute clarity.